Season 18 was set to go live last night, the official launch of Roll Queue, but it launched completely busted, where top 500s and even pro players were getting matched into placement games with gold level players, with some pretty outrageous results. The San Francisco Shock player Choyobin, who is a ridiculous player, I think if the whole season was on 2-2-2, he would have been an MVP candidate. That's how good I think he is. He got placed into gold, and the thought of Choi's Roadhog playing up against gold players is enough to give anybody nightmares. And this effect has been described as appearing to be like an MMR Reset. I'm not so sure that's exactly what it is, but the reason why people believe that is because Bill Warnecki went on to the forums to explain what went wrong, and he said what happened was Season 18 went live, ignoring the matchmaking values from prior seasons, so what they're doing is delaying Season 18 and extending the Roll Queue beta season. He says, while we work on a fix for this bug, we expect to be ready for Season 18 early next week. Now, I assume he means from the perspective of posting this last night on a Saturday, early next week being tomorrow, Monday, or even Tuesday, hopefully not an entire week after that. And he also clarifies that there will be a side effect of extending the beta season where the competitive card will say the season is ending in less than a minute. Don't be alarmed, although he doesn't explain when it'll exactly end because they don't have a distinct plan. I'd expect it to be similar in the time frame that they were planning on doing it originally on Saturday, on the evening of Monday or Tuesday, for it to change over from the Roll Queue beta to Season 18 properly. So overall, no harm, no foul. I'm in no way going to hold this against Blizzard because this is the exact type of mistake I want them to make. I want them to change things and work towards improving them, and sometimes that just gets messy and you have a day of placement games that have to get erased and say, oops, start over again, but that's what creative destruction is. We as a community need to make Blizzard feel comfortable in taking these kind of risks because for about 3 years they seemed too careful to take any step in any direction, and that just isn't a way to continue to develop the game. So to some degree, with all of these malfunctions of the Roll Queue beta and it being implemented into a regular season, whether it be this bad day or even the ranks not being appropriate per role yet, I think it's fair to give them some time to actually work out the kinks with it. It's a shame it took this long, and really, this is the type of thing that would have been nice to have a long time ago, but things can't be perfect. We're finally getting it now, so these are the growing pains that we can expect to have to deal with. Now, specifically to the MMR Reset idea, I think now that we've sort of seen a glimpse of what that might look like, it's a good opportunity to discuss why that could never happen. And there's a lot of reasons, but if you take any of these top 500 level players and you place them in gold, I know a lot of people think that they won't get out. I can assure you and go into depth about it, but not only will they get out, they will dominate in gold, plat, diamond, maybe have a bit of a headache in masters, but get past that too, and just get up to the top of the ladder again, because when you're that good, you can do remarkable things in the game of Overwatch, which is the type of level of skill that I just love to watch, but I don't think any of us want to see that wrath enacted onto us mere mortals, right? I mean, I've improved my gameplay enough where my main account can play in Grand Masters up against some of these gods of the game, and I'm not gonna lie, I get scared playing up against some of the best streamers and pro players at the top end of the ladder. I have to take the game really seriously to compete up at that level, and I already feel weak in comparison to them, and I'm terrified of the idea of a lesser version of my gameplay a year or two ago. It's terrifying to think what some of these players could do to either that version of me or many of you who I know are in the middle ranks trying to get a grip on the game, and then some freak of nature just walks in destroying everything. And that's what an MMR Reset would bring. It would bring a lot of chaos and destruction, the end of days of gold rank, effectively. And there are some positives that we will get to, but it would be an apocalyptic type scenario that you just wouldn't want once you got it. There's a few ways I can go about explaining why that is, and I think the first major one to point out is that, in truth, the skill gap of Overwatch is massive, and a lot of people aren't used to that in shooter games nowadays, especially not mainstream ones. If you play games like Call of Duty or Battlefield, and honestly, even some of the harder ones, I would argue Overwatch dwarfs it in terms of difficulty, but a lot of times the player base is sheltered and protected away from realizing how difficult the game is and how wide of a chasm the skill gaps are. In a game like Call of Duty, yes, a pro player is going to be way better than an average Joe, but in arena FPS games, and very much so in Overwatch, pro level players players can dominate, where an actual average player might physically never be able to get an elimination on them. Overwatch is an incredibly difficult game, and it's because the SR system is fairly accurate and has been for a long time at placing you among peers that people really don't realize the gap between where their skill level is and how much higher it has to get to the next rank. And this is an important distinction to make, because when you say you want an MMR reset, what happens is it treats everybody as if they were an average player, and we know that there's huge gaps in skill between bronze and GM, and somehow slamming them into the middle is going to create for some really ugly games. Now, I know why a lot of top level players want an MMR reset, because truth be told, there's a lot of players that seem to just float up the system without having to learn much about Overwatch, and their game sense and ability to work as a team and knowledge of the meta or hero flexibility and all sorts of things seems to be lacking once you start getting into those upper ranks. But people getting rank just based on their mechanical skill, which makes part of the SR system incredibly accurate, but it also means that players based on their abilities in their movement, aim, and ability usage, that's all the system's really testing on. So the system does work very well on that regard, but because we have a solo queue ladder, we're not really training people on how to be good teammates. So even when players come out of Masters and get into lower GM, starting to step their toe into higher ranked games, they aren't necessarily trained up to play with the highest level players that are experienced in the scrim environment or are just actual pros as well. And because of that, a lot of these streamers who have those type of expectations of their teammates think a lot of these players in their games just don't belong there. But unfortunately, this is the best that the system can produce in the way that it's set up. It's a system that benefits solo queue and boosts players away from lower ranked players. This means players with skill float upwards even if their game sense isn't as good, which is sort of a sacrifice that the development team decided to make, which, to be honest, isn't the case in other games, okay? I've played a huge percentage of online competitive games in my 20 years of gaming, and believe me when I say this, Overwatch has the most pristine lower ranks of any game I've seen. Normally in other games, low ranks have massive smurf problems, whereas Overwatch has minor smurf problems. No matter what, you're gonna have smurfs, right? But in other games, like half of the players are smurfs that are multiple tiers above that level, and it's much easier in those games that don't have SR boosts for people to manipulate the system and keep their smurf accounts low, whereas Overwatch says, no, we can tell you're too good, get out of this rank. And the effect that this has, and I can see this in gameplay submissions and whenever we're reviewing or coaching a player, if you look at gold, all of the gold players move and react and aim in a very similar way. The game is played at a very reliable speed of how many actions people are making, how quick everything goes, and as you go up each rank, that increases as well. And it all comes down to the core fundamentals of what the system is testing for, and that's mechanical output, which includes getting value out of your character in every way you can: movement, ability usage, aim, everything. And if you look at any of these stats websites, there's multiple of them for Overwatch, but if you compare stats across each rank, you see a very clean distribution of all the stats going up at each rank. If the system was inaccurate, that wouldn't be the case. And last point with this, just to sort of close the book on this whole conversation, oftentimes whenever we bring this up, a lot of people get really mad. They don't want to believe this. They think the system's holding them back, despite the fact I watch your gameplay at gold and it's never any good. But that's fine. You should be happy with that and realize that you have a big mountain to climb in terms of your ability to play the game. But just put that to the side. If you think the system holds you back, I want you to watch that Netflix documentary on flat earthers. It's actually really great, and it breaks down conspiratorial thinking in a really exhaustive and non-judgmental way. And what happens, of course, with that community is that every test they set up that doesn't prove what they already believe, they just ignore and move on and try to change the test rather than be beholden to the result. And there's an Overwatch equivalent to this. People actually think that the system holds you back and forces you to be in a lower rank. Remember, this isn't talking about the off-roll problem, which everybody already knows is kind of all over the place, and they're still working the kinks out with that. But generally, when the system does have enough data, it does get where it's supposed to be, and you can test for this, because if you take a player who's played an account for a long time, pumped up the system with tons of stats to give the MMR an idea of where they're supposed to be. What do you think happens when a top 500 player logs into that account and starts dominating their games? If the system holds them back, like people think it does, it should be hard for a near pro level player to boost that account out, right? But that's not what happens. Even in less severe examples, I'll give you just one closing nugget of this. Let's say you had a friend who's in plat or gold. We'll call this person Smetty the Chump, okay? And you wouldn't do this because it's against terms of service. You're not supposed to share accounts and play on other people's accounts. That's not allowed, okay? Don't do that. Let's say Smetty the Chump had friends that were much better at the game than him, and for whatever occasion, because they wanted to play together, an account that previously was only played on by Smetty the Chump, all of his stats holding him back so he can't get out of the low ranks. What do you think happens when one of his friends that play at a rank or two higher or multiple ranks higher plays on that account? Spoiler alert, massive boosts instantly. The system immediately picks it up, which I need to stress is what's going to happen to you if you stop grinding ranked and work on your fundamentals. That's what players really need to do. You should be spending twice as much time honing your skills, reviewing your VODs, grinding your mechanics, learning about game sense as you do actually playing the game. Playing the game is a horrible way to learn, in my opinion. A lot of people say the opposite and say, well, just grind up, you'll get better. But I think that works if you're already good. If you're not good, you have to really train up and learn the things you're doing wrong, because whatever it is, as soon as you improve on it, the system will immediately start boosting you out of the lower ranks, especially the ones that have SR adjustment, so that's platinum and below. And the real problem with this, of course, is that it causes players to be higher than they really should, in my opinion, because they're able to climb more significantly based on their gaps in mechanical output and the overall value that their hero brings, not necessarily their value as a teammate, which is much harder to track, obviously. Okay, that's everything on my rant about MMR, the SR system, all of that. At the end of the video, I did want to say and shout out that we need more recent submissions to the Your Overwatch Plays email so we can do more coaching videos, get good guides, those types of videos on the new patch with role queue and everything. So if you would like to see your gameplay get reviewed, upload it to YouTube and then email it in to youroverwatchplays@gmail.com. Email in a loss where you thought you played really well, tells your rank, the heroes you played, and a brief description of what went wrong in the game or what questions you had. And we're excited to make more videos helping you guys level up your game and take advantage of the big SR boosts that are available to you once you do start to level up. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.